Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest Joe McQuillen, and he's here today to share with us his new book, My Search for Christopher on the Other Side. Now, Joe has been married for 27 years and is the father of 3 children, one on the other side. Joe is the youngest of 10 children in an Irish Catholic family. While Joe has had 2 successful careers, at heart, he's a blue-collared kid from Buffalo, New York. He started as a salesman and spent 25 years in the automotive business and worked his way up to executive manager and partner in a number of successful Chicago dealerships. So let's welcome to the show, Joe McQuillen.
Thank you, Marianne. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. My goodness, this book had me just crying. It's a very profound read.
Yeah, it's a special book, and I can say that with all humility because, every keystroke, every paragraph, my son was writing it with me. So, and when I slowed down or took some brief delays, he made sure to prompt me to get this going because he said people need this book. So, I'm all in.
Well, I can see that people do. So many of us go through the loss of a loved one, and it's tough because, and you talk about that bond's never broken. And I think a lot of times people don't know what to do with that connection.
I sure didn't. I didn't come into this last few years with any preconceived notions of what the other side was about, other than basically what you're taught as a kid. So it was all step by step learning for me, and just as more things were revealed, the more I became completely concrete in the knowledge that this is real. I know this. This is not I don't believe in what I'm telling you. I know what's going on in what I'm telling you because I've had some insights and some connection with the other side that everybody else has the ability to do the same.
Yes, without a doubt. Well, so why don't we talk a little bit about Christopher? What was he like as a kid?
He was a tenacious kid. He was funnier than heck, and we had our hands full from the very beginning. He just never slowed down. And, it's funny because the day my brother-in-law was over in 2017 talking to my wife, and Sally was describing how Christopher was as a 2 or 3-year-old playing hide and seek and how tenacious he was. And he would say, you go play hide and seek, you'd find him, he'd go hide again. And in that little 2-year-old voice and go hide and run around and we could go all day. So when I heard her telling the story, I was smiling, and I walked up to my room and began to write the book that I'd been keeping notes on for a full year at that point. So he was that way. He was a wild child. I say he gets that from his mom's side of the family, but I'm kidding. I was a pretty wild kid, and so he and I really connected. He loved that whole beach bum, Tommy Bahama, Jimmy Buffett lifestyle. He was a bad student, wonderful guy, really good friend, and one of these guys that was always a champion for the underdog. When he was up at Northern Illinois, he started this program, or he was in the first class of this program for mentoring kids with disabilities, young adults doing theater, and he was a mentor. And we actually have a golf outing, and half the money goes to Penguin Players, which is this program, and they have a Chris McQuillen foundation. They have a Chris McQuillen scholarship, and then In Balance Ranch, where he was and we sent him for a year for kids with alcohol drug problems, and stayed on there as a life coach. And they just dedicated a brand new student housing bunkhouse, and they call it McQuillen Manor. So that stuff doesn't happen unless you're a special kid. He was a wild colonial boy, but he was sweet and loving, especially with his friends and his mom.
I think so many people can really relate to this. I look at growing up and, friends of mine who have children, everyone's got a wild child, and so you can kind of really relate to Chris's story through you and the connection that you both have.
Yeah, and the neat thing is, me as this kind of a, blue collar guy from Buffalo, and Chris is kind of wild kid, not exactly the greatest student in the world, and never knew what you're going to get next with him, and that makes this even easier to get your arms around, because we're not talking about a perfect dad and a perfect son that ended up connecting on the other side, is what the afterlife, heaven, whatever you want to call it. But that's where he's at, and that's where we connect from. And he's happier than a clam. I'm telling you, he's having more fun than a barrel of monkeys.
Oh, that's all that anyone can really wish for. It must have been a real journey to get to that place where you're able to hear that communication and really feel okay.
You're never okay. I hear the communication. I've got this great inroads to connecting with him, and I've done it through mediums, and I still do that, and I still get a couple times a month. We still have our 3 a.m. meetings where I take notes, and I meditate, and he starts giving me messages, and hopefully that'll continue the rest of until I cross, and I'm rounding third, so that's not all that long, but hopefully that'll connect to that. But it's the one thing I think the parents listening are going to understand who've lost somebody, like Parents Helping Parents and Father Helping Fathers online type thing, is that you're never okay. Your life changes. Now, this is an amazing gift I got, and I'm so grateful to God for this gift that he gave me. But the truth of the matter is, I trade it all in tomorrow for him walking through the door saying, hey, let's get a pizza, or, can we go to a Sox game or a Cubs game, Pop? You know what I mean? So it's not a bad second place, but it's not even close to, hugging your kid in the flesh. So yeah, nobody's ever okay when they lose a kid. And friends trying to say something loving may say something like, well, you'll get over it, or time heals all wounds, and shut up. No, it doesn't. This one stays with you forever. To this day, I have, like right now, you just have these moments where it just kind of flows over you, and you got to deal with it, and you let it come over you like a wave, and then you get back on the saddle and finish the day. But that grief is connected to how much love I had for him on this side and how much love I still have for him that knows no bounds.
Yeah. I think it's important to have this dialogue, because a lot of times people just don't know what to say, or like you're saying, they say the wrong things, not really meaning to. And so they get into this situation where it's like, gosh, there's got to be a place where language can be, where people can be more supportive when people are going through loss.
Yeah, and basically it's, I'm sorry for your pain. I can't imagine how painful that is, and that's a lovely way to attract it. You're not going to bring anybody or to approach it. You're not going to bring anybody out of their funk by telling them it'll be okay. It will be okay. It'll all be different the rest of your life. It'll be a whole different okay. My life, Marianne, my life is beyond my wildest dreams. I have that lovely wife. I have a wonderful kids, one on the other side. I've got a life certainly better than I was ever entitled to. And I also know that when it's time to go, I get to spend the next round with this twin flame son of mine who's on the other side. So I got a lot of work to do. This book's got to get out there. We got to get this message out to a lot of people. But if God tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, sport, time to go, man, I'm okay. I have no fear of what's coming next, because I was told what it's like. And it's pretty nice.
Was it difficult writing this book?
It was difficult writing the book, but it would have been more difficult not writing the book, because then you'd have to deny this calling. I didn't mean to write the book, Marianne. I was meeting with mediums and trying this meditation and get this calling to get up at 3:00 in the morning and meditate and light the sage and the candles, just like I'm doing right now. With a guy with a brush cut and a bent nose, that's pretty funny. That's a pretty funny setup, And I've had a lot of people come up to me and said, if it wasn't you saying this, I wouldn't believe it. But since it's you, I believe it 100%. So I didn't mean to write a book. I was keeping these notes, these really copious notes, good word, copious notes, and file them under the date. Figured someday I'd be able to sit on a porch and review all the notes. I still have all these the I ate video from since he was born and the other kids growing up. I haven't been able to look at those yet. But I figured I'd look at this note at one point. And it was a year after he had crossed over. And I'd been writing these notes since right that same time. So it was just over a year that I got the call to sit down and start writing a book. And I started writing the book with him right next to me. And looking at these notes from the year before, some of it was like, it wasn't, for the first time I saw it, but it felt like it was for the first time I saw it. And I realized that in the messages he was giving me weren't coming from me, because some of it's very contrary to how I think. I'll give you an example. He said to me, it was the night before the first anniversary of his crossing. And he said, you got to forgive Scotty. He was just being him. I loved him and he loved me. Well, that was about it. Was the kids whose parents owned the lake house. I had resentment. It wasn't right. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't anybody's fault. 4 reckless kids jump in a boat in a partially iced over lake in January in Wisconsin, half in the bag, and bad things happened. It was a perfect storm. It wasn't his kid's fault. It wasn't his parents' fault. But I was still, holding a grudge. And so he told me to do this, and I figured, all right, what the heck? Sure, for you, Chris, anything. Besides, when would I ever need to deal with this? Fast forward 12 hours at the grave, 40 kids show up at the anniversary. 40 kids. It was like people coming out of clown show cars. And there's Scotty crying. So he was preparing me for this, but it didn't initiate with me because I wasn't ready to let it go. I wanted to hold on to something. And another time he told me, the journey should be like a canoe gliding through a lake, gliding through water. Do you think I would ever use the analogy of a canoe? I would never. My son crossed over. My son drowned in a canoe accident. I would never use that. So those are the incidents that say to me, you're not kidding yourself, pal. This was really happening. These are messages from your son on the other side. Get your arms around it and let's help some people with this.
Yeah. Well, and your book, it really does provide a lot of help and inspiration, I think, hope for people that there still can be this connection and not to really kind of deny that they're making those kind of connections, because I think a lot of times we kind of get stuck in, is this really happening? Am I really connecting, with my loved one? When you've got, like, as you're saying in your book, you've also got these really undeniable situations that come up that really highlight that.
And you could tell in the book that I was writing, there was doubts. I needed reassurances from him. I needed reassurances from mediums who would look at it and say, no, that was Chris. Thomas John would say, no, that was Chris. Andrew Anderson, who's the first medium I saw in person after he had drowned. And I went and saw him, and it was the first time I'd met him, and it was June 30th of 2016, because our wedding anniversary, Sally and mine, was the 29th. And I wanted to see him, and he went through the initial introductions and all that, and he wanted to see a picture of Chris. And then he said, Chris acknowledges you were at his grave this morning and that you had planted something. Chris acknowledges you're wearing a bracelet in his honor. Chris acknowledges you guys celebrated his birthday the way you always did. Check. We had gone to Rana, Japan as a family. We released balloons or Chinese lanterns, which Andrew said. I had just that day planted shamrock seeds around the loose dirt in his grave, because I'd moved him one grave over, but that's a whole other story, and planted shamrock seeds. And he acknowledged that. Now, I got to tell you, and I was wearing a bracelet that I hadn't worn in 16 years that he gave me when we were all in Disney World, with Goofy on the clasp that said Dad. It was in my drawer. I grabbed it and put it on, and it was under cuffs, so he didn't see this. So he's telling me things that nobody on this planet knew, because they just happened that day. I left the house. The house was empty. Stopped at the grave, went over there, and this cat's nailing 3 out of 3 things the first 5 minutes. And so at that point, I said, this isn't smoke and mirrors. This is my kid, And you got to understand, I was a car dealer. I was in the business for 25 years. I'm not a naive guy. You're not going to pull one over on me. If this wasn't real, I wanted to find that out and check it off the list and find another way. But all I found was this is real. And as Susan Geisman, first book, says, they're still right here. if you're listening to this and you've lost a son, daughter, any loved one, they're still right here. And people ask me in interviews, they'll say, you know, I've tried to reach my sister, but no luck. And I'd say, try harder. You know, try harder. Find some spot that's conducive. You know, get the books. Get the Communicating with Spirits for Dummies. You know what I mean? Read, find out, follow the steps, align your chakras, do the things that open the doors that allow this love to come across this very shallow wall. You know, so try harder. You know, and another time somebody asked me on an interview, what do you tell people who just don't buy it? I say, tell them change the channel. I'm not selling anything. You know, this is for people that need to know that their loved one hasn't moved to some void. They're still right here.
Yeah. I know, you know, when I've lost loved ones, you know, it does feel like there's a void, and it does take practice to make that connection and have that communication, and it helps. You know, I understand what you're saying, but it definitely doesn't replace them being there physically.
No, not a chance. You know, and prior to Chris, most of the loss, I'm the youngest of 10 kids. So, you know, there's always big families, there's big losses. That's the way it goes, you know, just a numbers game. But most of them were in proper order. You know, I had a niece, Carrie, that didn't. And you asked me what kind of kid Chris was. Chris was 19 years old, and we went to Carrie's. My niece had an aneurysm, died a day later, left two beautiful little boys that her and her husband had adopted, a grieving husband who had to work to provide for these kids. Christopher stayed on in Buffalo, where they were from, where I'm from, and nannied those boys for 2 months, wiping noses, you know, getting ready for school, taking them for play dates. You know, I mean, he was their nanny for 2 months. And I said, buddy, that's a big undertaking. He said, Dad, that's just what family does. So, you know, if there's a kid that's going to reach across the side to him, across the wall to embrace family, it's that kid, you know. So when he crossed, I've actually got the message that Carrie was there to greet him. And he said, Carrie, what are you doing here? You know, not knowing that, you know, he's the one who crossed, not her. You know, she was already there for a couple of years.
Yeah. When you made the decision to start working with psychic mediums, what kind of prompted that? What made you decide, okay, I'm doing this?
You know, that's a great question. You know, 15, 16 years before, I think more out of curiosity or a spiritual quest or something. Somebody had recommended a medium. Her name's Nancy Meyer. She's out in Surprise, Arizona. Good gal. But I hadn't this sense of urgency. My parents had died. They were in proper order. Grandparents died. They should have, you know, that's what happened. So I went out there, and most of the reading was kind of mundane. There wasn't a whole lot there for me. And I was getting ready to you know, hustle on down the road. And she looked at me, she said, hey, your dad is here. And he's showing me a caboose, and he's saying railroad. And we spent 40 years, my old man spent 40 years on the railroad. All of the boys, 5 of us, all worked on the railroad in college. We were a railroad family. Behind my desk is a railroad lantern from the Canadian Pacific Railroad. That's who described who we were. It was that hard steel of the rail, you know. So when Dad told me this, it was like, oh my gosh. You know, this was before Google search. My dad was not a famous guy, and he crossed over in '88, and he didn't have any big message for me. He didn't tell me the secrets of the universe. He just let me know he was there. So fast forward, you know, 16 years, and I need to find out what to do about this void of my son leaving our lives. And I thought, you know, if Iron Joe's on the other side, then there is another side, and that's probably where Christopher is. So let's see if we can't connect. You know, let's take a run at this thing. And that's what prompted it.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Joe McQuillen in regards to his new book, My Search for Christopher on the Other Side. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
There are nearly 2 million Americans living with amputation. Many live right here in San Antonio. Becoming an amputee can be scary, frustrating, isolating, but there's no reason to feel alone. The San Antonio Amputee Foundation is here to help support you and guide you toward resources such as home and car modifications and even prosthetic limbs. For more information or to make a donation, visit saamputee.org. We'll help you live a full, active life, one step at a time. San Antonio Amputee Foundation, healing limbs, hearts, and souls.
If not me, then who? This ethos is driving the Travis Manion Foundation to empower veterans and families of fallen heroes to develop character in future generations. In 2007, Marine First Lieutenant Travis Manion was killed in Iraq while saving his wounded teammates. Travis's legacy lives on in the 5 words he spoke before leaving for his final deployment. If not me, then who? Guided by this mantra, veterans continue their service, developing strong relationships in the community, and thrive in their post-military lives. Visit TravisManion.org and ensure the character of our nation's heroes lives on in the next generation. If not me, then who?
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest Joe McQuillen in regards to his new book, My Search for Christopher on the Other Side. So Joe, before we left for break, we were talking about, reaching out and talking to psychic mediums. Well, and I think, a lot of people, I've done it myself, where you connect with these really gifted psychic mediums and you get this information like you were talking about with the bracelet and just these really private moments that you had that there's no way that anyone else could know. And then the information that you get, comes in that person's tone and you're hearing what's being said and it just makes sense. And
what people also got to grasp is that your personality on this side doesn't change. Maybe if you're caustic, maybe you're less caustic, but he's funny. Christopher's always funny. And so he comes to the mediums. And every one of them said, he's gorgeous. I mean, he looks like Brad Pitt, and he's gorgeous, and he's funny. Andrew, the first meeting, said, does he curse a lot? Because I don't curse, and he seems to be cursing a lot. And I said, yeah, he curses a lot. He said, you got two from the same family. You've got your sister and her daughter over here. I said, yeah. He said, do they? I've never used this term. He said, do they bicker a lot, or did they bicker a lot? I said, they were known, mother and daughter, for bickering all the time. He said, they're still doing it, so your personality doesn't change. Mm-hmm. I think it's like wine, you get better, but your personality doesn't change. You're the same type of person, but before your energy went to the other side, I've been told by mediums if your kid is outgoing, there's a better chance of them just barging through. And Christopher's come through in almost every reading, public, 150 people, private, every medium I've gone to, Christopher has made his way through. We just saw John Holland, last month. And toward the end of it, literally the very last reading he did, 130 people, We're in the squirrely, in the middle of the aisle. And he came up and started talking about Chris and described Chris, asked us about T-shirts. They had just had a pub crawl, his fraternity and college buddies, the week before, and they had T-shirts. And he said, why do I see a sports logo on it, the Buffalo Bills? He said, what's with the bracelets? And we have bracelets from the golf outing that are rubber and stainless steel and silver, because the bracelets with his name on it. Well, his mom and I were both wearing bracelets with his name on it. He's up on a stage. We're in the middle of the audience. Mm-hmm. And he's just nailing us. He's just zinging us with these things. Now, this probably went on for 10 minutes, but it felt like an hour of all of this wonderful feedback and information and love. And he said, he was happy about the book. He loved to see his name in lights. This guy said, it appears that there were like a lot of people at his wake and funeral. We had 2,000 people at his wake. 2,000. You'd have to pay people money to come to my wake. That kind of number. 2,000 people. But how did he know that? He didn't read my book. He didn't know me from Adam. But Chris came through. And if you're looking for where the strings and smoke and mirrors, let down your guard, man. Like we say, I've been in recovery for 33 years for alcoholism. I was wild. And like we say, try it. And if it doesn't work out, we'll refund your misery, So.
Yeah, that's without a doubt, and it's a good way to kind of look at that, because, what do you have to lose by being open? And
right.
Being open to the messages that come across, and who knows, maybe there's just that little piece that could heal your heart.
Right. Take a shot. Mm-hmm. And if you've lost somebody that you think is lost, it's worth it. What are you worried about? My biggest fear, Marianne, was the void. My biggest fear was living in a world without Christopher, and I found out I didn't have to. And it's funny when I just came back. I did an interview on St. Louis television sport on TV2 yesterday. So I drove to St. Louis, did this interview, came back, and so I Googled where should I stay near the television, headquarters, and looking online, what hotel, what kind of deal, AAA. I'm going there for a night, and I'm Googling it. Right, we're all going to the other side. We're all going, man. Pack your bags. Maybe not today, tomorrow, but we're all going. And yet most people are oblivious to what that means. As kind of was I until this overtook me. And so, I love knowing that for Chris, it's a beach. It's beautiful, warm air. It's like he said, your side, Dad, is like boot camp or training camp in football. He said, my side is like a bungalow in Maui, a beach bungalow. Now you can find joy in that boot camp, and you can find joy in that training camp, because there's camaraderie and there's work and there's satisfaction of a job well done. But the real joy happens when you cross over, So, try to figure it out. We're all going,
Well, I feel your book, My Search for Christopher on the Other Side, helps people to at least start asking those questions to themselves and start really thinking about, what the other side, what that could be, what's the journey, and, what our loved ones, that have gone before us, what they're going through.
And it's exactly right. And how do we connect with them? I'm told that my dad steps back because he knows how much I want to connect with Christopher, but he's around him all the time. Andrew Anderson once said to me, "Oh, your dad's right next to Christopher." And he said, "Christopher just kissed you on the top of the head. Your boy loves you, Now, my sister Marcia, who was Christopher's godmother, and I talked a lot about her in the book because she provided a significant amount of love in my life growing up. And she crossed over 3 months ago. And I've heard messages from her already, and that Chris was there, as were my other brothers, and sister that greeted her when she crossed over. And they said something interesting. I never thought of this. I was told that, Marcia came over, everybody greeted her, and it was like a family reunion on the other side. But then Marcia, because she had suffered from cancer for a few years, and it was pretty bad, she had to go somewhere like a spa or something on the other side to be able to heal. Because even though the cancer was gone and it was a physical malady from this side, the trauma went with her. And then she spent some time, adjusting to life on the other side. And now, she's described as young and beautiful and vibrant, like we knew her growing up, So, I was like, wow, that's a pretty good insight. I never thought about that. You take this horrible, last run at life, you cross over, and you go to a day spa or a spa on the other side to get rid of all the bad toxic, energy that followed you across,
What are your thoughts and fears or emotions around, death and all that?
I have no fear of death. I think that's one of the benefits of what I've been through is I have no fear of death. When I cross over, my son's going to be there and we get to have that connection again, in person on the other side. I have zero fear of death. And other things that scare me a lot less than they did before. Financial insecurity, fear of the kids or, getting whatever, life's drama. Because I actually know that, you put in your time, you work here, you make this life as best you can, do some service. In the name of God, do some service. Mm-hmm. But then you walk into paradise. Then you walk into St. Bart's for criminy's sake, So I have zero fear of death. It's going to come, it's going to take us. And like I said, if you tap me on the shoulder and said, sport, time to go, I'm packing my ditty bag and going because it's not so bad.
Yeah. And what a profound realization, because I think a lot of times people really become afraid of the unknown. And I believe your book really helps people to kind of look at this in a new light.
One of the greatest gifts of my life was when I was with my sister in the hospital before she crossed over, and she said, Joey, she always called me Joey. I'm a 62-year-old man. She called me Joey. And she said, Joey, after reading your book, I'm not afraid to die. After her giving me all this love and support all these years to be able to provide that. Mm-hmm. And then I talked to a medium, a couple months ago after she'd gone and said, your sister said you gave her the greatest gift at the end. It's like, wow. Isn't that amazing? So I do think this, if you've lost somebody or if you experience any loss and you read the book, the fear of what's coming next, or if you're holding on to this side by a thread, the fear of what's coming next should dissipate, because it's a lot easier than what we're facing on this side if your body has betrayed you.
Yeah, it's such a journey, and to have that peace of mind when we come to that 11th hour, I think is it's remarkable that you're doing that with this book. You're helping so many people. What does your family feel about this book?
It's great. My family's recovery or their grief is their own story, but they're all really supportive. And I got to tell you, my wife's writing her own book. She's a social worker. She's a therapist on her events, and her position is somebody who lost a son too early. They all buy in, I think, to the concept of the other side, and that Chris is around. I believe that. I think they're very supportive. Nobody's running around going, who's that weird guy, who talks to his son? I think I get a lot of support. Now, I will tell you, Sally can't listen to interviews and relive this all the time, yet I feel, unbelievable support and love from her and complete acceptance. My daughter, who's a little more resistant, just graduated from Marquette. And it's only not that she doesn't believe me on the other side. She's just still mad. She's mad about losing her brother. But we all go to Canada every year. And this year I'm going a couple days early, and I'm going to stop in Lilydale for a day or two. And she's coming with me, which is just wonderful. And then we're doing an appearance at something called Hall Walls in Buffalo, where I'm doing a book signing, because that's where I grew up. And it's an opportunity to have a bunch of friends and tell my story there. So that, and she's going to be involved in that. They've all been involved in all the book signings and presentations that we've been doing locally. And, like I said, I'm going, one out in Book Soup in California, so they're 100% behind it. But they know it's my story and my struggle, and they respect that.
Yeah, it's a struggle so many of us go through. I mean, we're all going to walk through that threshold someday. And your book really provides a lot of understanding and hope and love. And so I'm so grateful we were able to spend this time today, Joe.
I'm so grateful.
Oh, without a doubt. My goodness, it's been really illuminating. And where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your book and become part of your community?
Okay, great. So I have a website, my search for Christopher.com. Go on the website. I'm going to tell you, my email is jbmcquillen, McQuillen, @gmail.com. Reach out, man. If there's something that, you lost somebody, you're not sure reach out. We'll talk. I'm on kind of this crusade because my kid wants me to, and this makes him proud. He's proud of this book. He's proud of the effort. He prods me to make sure that I'm being of service. So, I'm getting these emails and follow-up phone calls from people all over the country, all over the world. Somebody from Australia, and a couple of people from Great Britain, because they felt this amazing loss and they don't know what to do with it. And I don't have all the answers. I've been doing this for a couple of years, and I'm kind of just figuring it out. I'm maybe knee deep in the shallow end here, but I'm walking through it and I'm open to it. And a burden shared is cut in half, So, and the truth of the matter is, unless you lost a kid, you walked in those moccasins, it's hard to listen to somebody else. But people who've shared that experience, they can share and unburden themselves a bit.
Well, I feel your book, My Search for Christopher on the Other Side, is helpful for people who've gone through loss of any kind.
Right.
You're looking at a parent, a child, a loved one, friend, you name it. I feel that it really provides a lot of insight and hope. Joe, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me on and helping me, share. I won't say my book. I'll say share our book, Christopher and Ma's book, so we can get that out there and start doing some good.
Well, thank you, Joe. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and, of course, to talk about your new book, My Search for Christopher on the Other Side. Again, if you'd like to connect with Joe, you can at his website, mysearchforchristopher.home.blog. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.